Great. Let's move on to another topic to discuss in this podcast, and we're going to have a look at the new season of The Crown. This is the hit Netflix series. It's now been season 4. It's just been released. I didn't binge watch it. James, did you binge watch it?
I mean, sort of. I watched it all in the space of a weekend.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, but not all in like one day.
No.
No, yeah, okay. Well, so I didn't binge watch it. I watched it over a couple of weeks. This is obviously a fictional, semi sort of based on truth series focused on the British royal family, and it follows some of the major events. This one is from the late 1970s until around 1990. It's Margaret Thatcher's time in 10 Downing Street as British Prime Minister. Some good actors in there and actresses. Let's first, what did you make of the series? Did you like it?
I just need to get it off my chest first that their portrayal of Camilla Parker Bowles, okay, she looks exactly like Stevie Nicks. I just needed to get that off my chest before we go any further. Please Google images.
Yeah, if anyone
it's uncanny.
If we remember editing, we can even put up the pictures here.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the actor's name, but she definitely needs to play Stevie Nicks in a movie.
That's Ingrid Fennell, who plays Camilla.
There we have it. What did I think of this season? I think it was probably its strongest yet, overall. There was one problem I had with it, though, is that because I don't know if this is because the quality was more consistent, I felt there weren't really so many standout episodes, which I'd often found with previous seasons. For season 1, for example, the Great Smog episode. Season 2, the Kennedys and Kwame Nkrumah episode. Season 3, the Aberfan disaster. I didn't really get that with this season. Then again, with those other seasons, there were some episodes that were really boring. Whereas I didn't find that this time around.
Yeah. What about Michael Fagan? No, this is the bloke who broke into Buckingham Palace and had a conversation with the Queen. Eventually was
yes, it's one of those things you couldn't make up if it weren't for the fact it's actually true.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that was obviously this season is set during Margaret Thatcher's tenure, which is a time in UK politics that is very controversial. Thatcher has her detractors and her admirers. Obviously, it was a time she was roughly the equivalent of Ronald Reagan in the States, realigned the British economy towards neoliberalism. There was mass unemployment under Thatcher. It touches on that. The Michael Fagan episode is really the only one that kind of tries to get on the ground as to what devastation Thatcherism caused to the UK economy and seeing what it was like from the average Joe's perspective. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that was something missing throughout the whole series, isn't it? Like not just season 4, but the previous season too. There's very rarely the voice of the common man or common woman in there to give what they think about it. It's very much a bubble, isn't it? And you're very much sort of isolated. And I can see why. I think they want to put you as much as possible within the royal family and show how isolated it is. And I get that totally. But God, it was so refreshing, wasn't it, to hear someone, shout, the government is, whatever, and the Queen is whatever. But how nice was that? Because that's what normal people think and feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of my criticisms of the season 3 episode on the Aberfan disaster. As extremely well done as that episode was, we could have done with actually, obviously they touch on following the villages at the start, but we could have done with a more well-rounded character from the village, which we just didn't have. It was all about how the Queen and Prince Philip and the then Prime Minister Harold Wilson reacted to it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. We didn't really get their voice so clearly, did we? It was collective there, but it wasn't really personified in any one person, was it?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously that sequence where they're all singing at the funeral is quite incredible. But like you say, there isn't really a well-developed character among them, which would have been, like you say, with Michael Fagan, a breath of fresh air to have somebody from outside of that bubble.
Yeah, there was a lot of anticipation going into this to see how Thatcher would be portrayed, but also Princess Diana as well. I'm sure people around the world are familiar with the story of Charles and Diana, and it is portrayed out in this series. I think it's quite a painful one for a lot of people, this, especially people who are perhaps in their 30s now or 40s now, because
and people who read the Daily Express.
yeah, they have a Diana story very often, don't they? But yeah, I mean, I think it's quite painful actually. I read a couple of the reviews afterwards, and a lot of them are saying how actually it feels very real. You know, when you're talking about events in the 60s and the 50s, it kind of feels very detached, doesn't it? But actually, to talk about Princess Diana and see the marriage with Charles breaking down in the series, God, that's quite hard to watch. I don't know how you found that, James, but for me, it was actually there's hard moments in that.
I was alive. I had been born at the time when Diana died. Obviously, this season doesn't get to that point yet. But, you know, it's still something I don't remember at all. So I still feel that slight detachedness from it myself, personally. Obviously, it's a very sore topic for a lot of people still, what happened to Diana. And there's a lot of controversy about it. One thing I actually quite appreciated with the show is that nobody really comes out well. Nobody comes across well. There's no heroes and no villains. In fact, if there's anyone who is the villain in the show, the Queen is becoming a tad on the villainous side. Think of that final scolding she gives to Charles in the final episode.
Yeah.
We all know where that leads.
Yeah, she comes across as distant, doesn't she, and almost cold towards Diana.
Yes.
Yeah, and in previous seasons, it's not been like that, has it? She's been quite and
it's fairly predictable where the character development for the Queen is going to go now.
Yeah, where do you think?
Well, after Diana died, the Queen and a lot of the royal family had to fairly radically reassess what they stood for. And the Queen that we know and love today, Republican or monarchist, people generally agree that the Queen herself seems like a perfectly decent person and a national treasure, and I see that being where they take the character arc.
Yeah, okay. What did you make of Prince Charles? He came across as quite
immature, I mean,
in the series.
Yeah, he did not come across well at all.
Yeah, I mean, he's played by Josh O'Connor, who I thought did a great job of it.
Yeah, he does do a great job of it, but of course, Charles comes across as a massively entitled brat.
Yeah,
I think that would be it in a sentence. Yeah, he's not shown as treating Diana well at all. I don't know the factual accuracy behind this, but it suggested that he was carrying on with Camilla Parker Bowles, a former girlfriend of his, before he married Diana, who of course is now his wife since 2005, I think it was they married. So yeah, I mean, Charles does not come across well at all. Again, no heroes, no villains.
Yeah, and there was also the betrayal. I thought Diana's betrayal, and especially when they looked at the topic of her bulimia, her eating disorder, that was quite hard to watch as well. That was quite difficult. I don't know anyone personally who's experienced that, but I thought they did a great job of showing what it would be like, and I feel like you could almost tell why. You could understand why she was doing it straight away. You could tell the pressure she was under, and that's great, because I think when you see something like that, you want to know why. You want to understand why. And I think it really does clearly come across why when Diana acts out in the series.
I mean, the thing that concerned me going into this show is that they were going to overly romanticize the drama and sort of make it a sort of, star-crossed lovers sort of thing, a doomed romance. But it wasn't that at all. It was made pretty clear that this marriage was some sort of political calculation on the part of Philip and the Queen.
Yeah, Philip seems to have settled a bit more now, doesn't he? I remember in previous seasons he was a bit of a, I don't know, a bit more energetic.
Bit of a Jack the Lad.
Yeah, a bit more of a lad, I guess that's a good way to say it. But now he seems to have really sort of settled into he almost came across as quite wise, didn't he, in this series, giving advice often. There's that scene at the end where he's advising Diana, isn't he? And he has that conversation with her in that bedroom at the Christmas party. I think it's the last episode. Very, very settled and mature, which is quite different to how we saw him.
Yes, we haven't. Yes, they're not going for so many of Prince Philip's throwaway racist comments as you would find in real life, perhaps.
Yeah, quite selective, isn't it? Yeah, what did you make of Olivia Colman's? It was the last series as the Queen, I believe. This one, I think they're going to have a different actress next.
Imelda Staunton next. I think Olivia Colman does a good job. I mean, largely a lot of her performance, I think, is just imitating Claire Foy's performance from the first two seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, Claire Foy really owned the part, and Yeah, like I say, the Queen is becoming quite a cold, detached character, almost like I say, a tad villainous. And I think, there hasn't been no character development of the Queen. Is one of the main problems with the show, I think, is that the Queen herself isn't the most interesting of characters. And I guess that's kind of the point. At the same time, there's not been no character development. And I kind of appreciate the subtle way they're going for this slightly more villainous Queen.
Was there anything that you particularly disliked about it? Anything you thought, I didn't like that about this series? Because for me, I'll maybe start. I'll say I think we could have seen a bit more of Margaret Thatcher. I felt, considering what a turbulent decade that was, from late 70s all the way through the 80s, what a turbulent time that was. I feel like we were only really saw tiny parts, where she's often in between meetings or she's often
obviously the show's not about Thatcher.
No, but I mean,
the title of the show is The Crown, not Number 10.
Yeah, but it's a highly anticipated part of it.
Of course, yes.
And I kind of feel that with other prime ministers in it, we saw a lot more of them. I don't know, maybe it's just my view.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say we saw any less of Thatcher than any previous prime ministers. Obviously, in season 3, the main one followed was Harold Wilson, although Edward Heath popped up a bit. Season 2, it was Harold Macmillan and a bit of Anthony Eden, and then, of course, in season 1, it was mostly Churchill.
Yeah,
who is a massively iconic figure. And, Thatcher's probably the next best known prime minister after Churchill that's been portrayed in the show so far. So, yeah, I mean, I thought there were slightly times in which Gillian Anderson's portrayal of Thatcher approached caricature.
Okay.
I mean, Thatcher has a very iconic voice, and you just got to... No, I'm not going to try it, but...
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of episodes where they try to delve deeper into the Queen and Thatcher's relationship, especially one that focused around Thatcher's what's the way of putting it? The controversy around the apartheid regime, shall we say?
Yeah.
And Britain's reluctance to come out guns blazing.
Yeah.
Against the apartheid regime in South Africa.
Yeah.
And there's a drama between the Queen and Thatcher over disagreements about this.
Yeah. Do you think anyone watching this will have a different opinion of the monarchy afterwards? I think I do. I think it's changed my mind slightly.
Possibly. I mean, I wouldn't say I have, because, I mean, I just completely approach it as fiction, as a drama.
Okay.
I don't take it seriously, so no, I wouldn't say my opinion's changed.
Yeah, I think we could definitely expect, I think we can expect any sort of historical fiction to have a strong influence on how people view the figures represented in it if they don't have existing conceptions. So I think, this is a Netflix series. There was a large international audience that feel a detachment from, the British culture as has been lived in the different time periods represented.
Oh boy, though. Imagine if people only know about the royal family from The Crown, and when Charles becomes king and they're like, oh, that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, there are people whose only understanding of the actions of Churchill comes from the different representations of him in fiction. And I think that's definitely led to a romanticization of the person that he was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of misses a lot of the bad stuff, let's say, that he's done, doesn't it? And you might be watching this in America, for example, and you might not be so intimately familiar with what Churchill was like or what he did in office. Why would you be? It's not a criticism of you if you are, but
plenty of people in Britain are completely ignorant about the full scale of Churchill's legacy.
Yeah, there are relatively few, I think, World War II movies that include Churchill's comments about the Bengali people.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't think of any, to be honest.
Yeah.
Should we give a bit of context on this, just in case?
Yeah. During World War II, there was a large famine in the Bengal region of India, managed under British rule, and Churchill insisted that the region continue to export food while the local residents were starving in order to support reconstruction of Europe. despite the local government repeatedly asking for his assistance, it appears that Churchill basically believed in a sort of applying social Darwinism to the situation and blamed the Bengali people for breeding too much.
Breeding like rabbits, I believe, was the phrase he used.
Yes. When when the region was actively exporting food that could have supported that population.
Yeah, and several million people died in that famine.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the question is, how important is it to portray characters as accurately as possible? When we've got a character like Churchill or the Queen, do we need to get it bang on, or is it all right to just...
Obviously, artists have to get a degree of artistic license. What I think is problematic is when Churchill is a good example of this, when the portrayals of him, especially in British culture, overwhelmingly glaze over the less savoury aspects of his character, shall we say, in the most euphemistic way possible.
Yeah. I don't... Obviously, there's no single representation of Churchill in fiction that we can say is definitively responsible for causing this widespread historical misrepresentation. But as a system of different representations of the characters, some weird things have gone wrong on that case.
Yes. One thing, just to bring it back to Thatcher a little bit in The Crown, one thing which I think was missing was the almost the division that she caused. I felt that was missing a little bit in the series, and by that I mean, I'm from the north of England, and if you talk to a lot of people in the north of England, or in some parts of the north of England, they don't have very nice things to say about Thatcher, and I believe that's because often they were coal mining towns which suffered under some of her policies. So when I sort of grew up around that kind of feeling and that kind of almost, I think I'd almost describe it as a hatred of her, but that didn't come through in the series, and I think for someone
it didn't dive deep into the miners' strike at all.
No, exactly.
Did it even reference the miners' strike?
They referenced unemployment, but I don't. The miners' strike, it didn't seem to come up, did it?
Pretty pivotal moment.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole, Arthur Scargill was one of the figureheads of that, the National Union of Miners, all of that glazed over.
I mean, Thatcher made it her goal to suppress the unions.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
And organised labour in this country hasn't recovered since.
And it worked so effectively that they no longer exist, even in historical representations.
And if you're looking for some context, Google the Battle of Orgreave.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
I'll
example.
let you do your research on that.
Yeah, okay, so the next season of The Crown, it's coming. It'll be a while before it's with us, but it looks like we're going to go into the John Major prime ministership years, so the early 1990s.
Yes.
So lots to look forward to there.
It's Imelda Staunton as the Queen, I believe, Jonathan Pryce as Philip, and Leslie Manville as Margaret, so that should be interesting.
Jonathan Pryce, is he the guy who's in The Night Manager?
I haven't seen it, I wouldn't know. He's High Sparrow in Game of Thrones, and he plays Pope Francis in The Two Popes.
Right, no, different guy. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be Diana's death, I imagine they're going to go over, and then I believe they're going to... Yeah, and I believe they're going to do a season 6, aren't they? Which is going to be...
There's 2 seasons planned, yeah.
Yeah.
Supposedly, what I've heard is they're going to take it into the early noughties. So I imagine... My guess would be season 5 will end with Diana's death, and season 6 will end with the Golden Jubilee, would be my guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Are they going to get Michael Sheen back to play Tony Blair? Because he just plays Tony Blair in everything, doesn't he?
Yeah. Why not? He'd be great, wouldn't he?
Yeah. He did a good job of it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So overall verdict, what do you make of it? Does it pass the test? Is it worth watching for you, James? Do you reckon, the new season of The Crown?
I don't think anybody who hasn't already enjoyed it will get on with this one anymore. I mean, obviously the production value, the production value of it is outstanding. I don't think anyone denies that. If you've enjoyed it so far, you'll like this one. If you haven't, you won't. This won't win you over, I think, would be my brief summary.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Yeah, I think I'd just say that I think it does go in a little bit more into the voice of the common man, which I think is much needed. And I really hope they do that more in future seasons, because I think that would be a great thing to look at in, if we do look at Diana's death, what a great opportunity that is to look at what she meant to people by focusing on a normal family, a normal man or normal woman in England or the UK. That'd be brilliant. Okay, so before we wrap up for today, is there anything else we want to add about the Green New Deal, about the Crown? Any other final thoughts?
AOC 2024. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, she's been on Twitch today, hasn't she? With
I saw. Was it today? But I saw something she was doing with H Bomber Guy and Hassan Piker.
Yeah,
that should have been fun.
Yeah, Mason, you're on Twitch, aren't you? Have you followed any of these guys on Twitch? Have you seen anything?
Not that closely, but I think it's something that we should be enthusiastic about.
Yes.
At the moment, 0% of US presidents have managed to reach diamond rank in League of Legends, and that's something that needs to be improved upon.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think AOC doing sort of Instagram and her management of social media, Twitter, Instagram, and her Twitch streams are sort of probably the modern day equivalent of FDR's fireside chats.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing strategy of reaching out to new people, and something that the Democrats, by and large, are really bad at. We talked previously about how badly QAnon managed to batter the Dems about. I think the Zoomer Dems, the Justice Dems, are more resilient to that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it'd be so cool if you were playing a game and AOC or someone like that popped up, but you'd be like, I don't know, like if it was like a shooting game or something, would you attack their character? I don't know, I'd feel a bit bad. Like, do you know what I mean? You'd be like, I really respect you.
I think in the average shooting game, by and large, in an FPS game, you don't have time to check usernames. You'll realize after you're counting dog tags.
What would their username be, like down with Trump or something? What do you think it would be?
I'm pretty sure if you logged into any game and tried to create that username, it would be already taken.
I just remember playing Agario. Do you know that? Have either of you played that? It's just this weird online game where you're a bubble and you have to consume these other bubbles and you grow your bubble. And obviously you can get designs put on them, and some of them are just Donald Trump's face.
Sounds like Boris Johnson's new winter strategy.
Years since I played that game.
Okay, I think that would be a good point to wrap up then. So thank you guys very much. So I've been Declan Carey in this episode, and I was joined by our co-editor, that was James Moules, and our reporter, Mason Quah. Thank you very much for listening or watching, whether that's our podcast or YouTube. Please do leave us a comment. Let us know what your view is, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.